Hi, everyone, and welcome to another lesson on how to draw the one-point perspective. Today, we are going to focus on the aerial view of a city, kind of looking down at some buildings. So we're just going to start here again with putting that point in the center. And what I'm doing is I'm just drawing the street view at the bottom, because at the very bottom you will see how there's going to be cars driving on the road, and they're going to look tiny, obviously, and little people. And then we're going to be almost picturing that we're flying maybe in a helicopter, and we can just kind of see down. What I'm going to do right now is put a couple extra lines above that street line. This is going to kind of represent the sidewalk. We'll change it a little bit later, but this is the line that all of our buildings are going to go to. Now what I do is just kind of put some random shapes around this area here. So we're going to put, some rectangles and some L shapes. This one here, I'm going to kind of do like an L shape. And just with the ruler, try and do some straight lines. We want to make this look as real as possible. So obviously you can do a freehand version of this, but it's just going to, not be as architecturally accurate. This one here, we're just going to do a rectangle. Maybe over in this one here, we're going to draw like an upside down T shape. And we have a bit of room over here on the left still to fit in one more shape. I think for this one, we're going to do kind of like an upside down U shape. And continuing on this space over here to the right, let's do like another kind of L-shaped one, but let's just do a different orientation of it. Upside down or sideways L. Let's go and put another couple rectangular buildings here. So let's do a rectangle here. And just in this little space here, we'll put, maybe just put a little square. There. Now we have the tops of our buildings on this side of the street. I'm just going to time lapse this here to show how we're going to randomly put some more shapes on the bottom side. These will be the buildings on this side of the street. Just did a T there on the far right. Upside down T. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find the corners of each one of these shapes, go to that point. That's why it's called one point perspective. Every corner is going to go to that point, but stop short on this little kind of sidewalk line that we made. And there is our first building. Let's continue on with the other buildings. Now notice when I do this third corner here going to the point, it's going to hit part of that building. So I'm just kind of going to have it go into that, make this straight line, but then I have to make a parallel line to this side of the building and then finish it off here. Let's do the same thing with this T building. Once again, look what I do with this line here. I'm going to do that line down, this line down, but now I have to put in my finished off line. So along the sidewalk, this one I'm going to make parallel to that line. And then this one, because it goes a little bit behind, I'm going to stop a little bit short of there. and put it in there and just darken up the lines so that you can see them a bit better. Still bugging me how poor the resolution is on this camera. The light keeps going in and out. And that is our building there. Let's do this upside down U building. This one gets a bit tricky, so just follow what I'm doing here. And there again, that's going to hit part of that building, so we're going to stop short there. Now we're going to put in our line. So parallel. Darken up that line so you can see it. Parallel there. And then make that line parallel. There's a little corner in there that I'm going to fix a little bit later. I noticed it when I did the video afterwards, so you'll see later how I fix that in. But now let's come over here and do these sides. These buildings. Join up the corner to the point. And I'm just doing the lines. Now I'm going to do the finish off pieces. So make that line. This one has to be parallel. Erase that line there. That eraser. Now to do this line here, we have to follow that down and then stop a little bit short. Make it parallel to there. Erase this remaining line. That's how we do that L building. Let's do this rectangular building. That just stops at that building there. We're going to make this one parallel. Oops. You want to go past that line there, so maybe I'll just erase this little piece here. It almost looks like it's connected there. And then finally, our little square building. Darken up these lines a bit. Just darkening up the lines here in this little section. All right, so we have the top buildings. Now what I'm going to do is just do these bottom buildings. Same thing with a time lapse. Just going from angle to point and then finishing off those lines parallel to the top shape of our buildings. Now, another thing I noticed in this video is I forgot to do those other two buildings there on the bottom, but I'll notice that when I'm doing my sketching later. So what I'm going to do right now in this area is I'm going to show you how to put little kind of, I don't even know what they're called, but at the tops of the building, sometimes there's like a little room where people can walk out on the roof of the building. You see this a lot in movies, where someone's coming out on top of the building. Like there's, John Wick walks out on top of the building and just that little section. So what I'm doing is just doing tiny little rectangular shaped pieces that stick out the top of the building. And then what I like to do is put little antennas on some of these buildings, because in the city, you have like a lot of these antennas to pick up, radio waves and like cellular waves or something like that. So always following that 1-point perspective. Maybe I'll put one over here. I'm kind of going the opposite way here. So I'm putting the bottom part first, and then I follow that point going up. Apologize for that light again. It's so bright when I work in that area, and then I move the ruler away, then you can see the lines. After you put those shapes in there, obviously you don't want it to look like it's see-through. So we are going to always just make sure that we're erasing those lines. Then darkening up the outside lines, make it pop out. Then let's put a little antenna on top of this one too. Follow that point, and then go up the ruler as far up you want. A couple lines, and then a little circle at the top. Do a little time lapse on this one too. Put another section on here. Maybe this one will be a little bit bigger. And I'm doing the same thing on the bottom buildings here. Oh, that's when I figured out I missed those buildings. So what I'm doing here on these buildings is putting little extra parts in there again and a couple antennas. Now, of course, we need to get some windows in these buildings. I'm going to show you how we can put some windows, but obviously, if you don't have the time, you don't want to put windows. Well, if you do have the time, you can put windows on every single building. But I'm going to show you a few shortcuts here. So this one will actually have windows. So what I'm doing is just doing 2 sections of windows here, just going to the point, following those lines down. And then I just go across here with horizontal lines. And I just skip spaces as I go down so I can see where my windows are. Now the top windows are going to be bigger than the bottom windows, because as it moves away from us, it gets smaller. I'm just making these lines narrower and narrower as it goes down the building. I'm sure there's a math to this, but I'm just estimating at this point and kind of using my eyes. And there's the bottom. Now I'm going to take my eraser and erase in between just the areas of the windows. I'll keep those lines. And because it's so small, I'm just freehanding these lines in here. But like I said, we don't have to do windows on every building. So here I'm going to show you how I'm just going to put some vertical lines going down. And sometimes that is a cool looking city building. Having some vertical lines going down. And if you read comic books and you see, city scenes in comic books, they show a lot of buildings like this where they don't always have windows. They just sometimes have lines in them. Now this one here, I'm just going to time lapse this and put in some windows. Similarly to the first building I did there. This one here, I'm just going to do some lines on them. If you do decide to do the lines, just make sure you're always using a ruler. Make nice straight lines. Always looks more architecturally believable. So there again, this is just time lapsing, showing you how I'm putting a whole bunch of different kinds of lines in them. You can look at the finished drawing to see how I made the different shapes for the buildings. So for this one here, I'm just putting in some windows in a similar fashion to the other window buildings. Now I enjoy drawing, so I do put in the time to make it look like this. So hopefully you guys have the interest in drawing, and once you put in the effort, the finished product usually looks pretty darn good. That's where I made that little mistake, so I just fixed it in there. Now the total time it took me to make this was about 45 to 50 minutes. So this lesson's about 20 minutes, so I just did some time lapsing to speed it up. And there again, if you really enjoy doing art, you can always get your pencil crayons or kind of colors where you can color up your buildings, make your pictures look more colorful. What I'm doing right here is just doing extra shapes on top of the buildings. It's kind of making a little outline look. Obviously enhances it as well. And that's essentially our buildings. Now what I'm going to do is focus on the street a little bit. It's going to outline, darken up those lines again for the street. Bit of a mistake here. Now the lines here you see that I put in to show the bottom of the buildings, we're going to erase that line and we're just going to put an extra sidewalk a little bit, next to that, just a little bit below it, like here. Now we'll put in an extra line. That will be our sidewalk line. And then on the other side as well. Now in the center of the street, we are going to put a divided line here, so it looks like there is sets of traffic driving in one direction and then one in the other direction, maybe two lanes dividing up that. What I'm doing here is I'm using the length on my ruler, so 1 centimeter lines. That just shows the divided, the dotted lines. And all I'm doing here at the end is just putting in some cars. Now, because we're so far away, all you really need to do is, like a car is essentially 3 shapes. You got the roof of the car, the hood of the car, and the back of the car. I'm just going to time lapse this a little bit and then show you the final product. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. And if you decide to do this one, have some fun making your aerial city view. And there again, you can color it. You can do whatever you like inside of it. But have some fun, be creative, be artistic. And I always like looking at your finished products, so don't forget to turn them in. Thanks, guys. See you next lesson.